Welcome to Women in Entertainment's In Her Words podcast. I'm Renee Rossi.
And I'm Gretchen McCourt.
And today we're interviewing Emily Hampshire, who is an actress and best known to playing Stevie on Schitt's Creek.
Emily was just a joy to sit down with. We had so much fun with this conversation, and we hope you do too listening to it. So Emily, thank you so much for being here. We're very, very excited. We very casual, conversational.
Casual.
Yeah, casual and editing and everything.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being here with us today. It was we were very excited, huge Schitt's Creek fan, which I don't think there's anybody in the world who's not. I told
my dad.
What?
He doesn't get why it's funny, but yeah. But yes, most people are.
Yeah, most people are. So what we hear a lot about the projects, and we hear a lot about Schitt's Creek and the stories. We want to hear about you. So that's really what we try to do at Women in Entertainment. What we want to do with In Her Words, our new podcast, is hear your story. And we think that our personal stories help. They help the people coming up next. Mm-hmm. They love to hear about, I studied this in school, or I never went to school. And so that's what we want to hear first, is just kind of the Emily story of you happy Canadians. And
we're so nice. And we're so sorry. We're always very sorry. Well, I'm Canadian. I grew up in Canada, from Montreal. And
do you speak French?
I do. In Montreal, you have to go to French immersion, which is like from kindergarten to grade 4, it's all in French. Then 4 to 6 is half the day in English, half the day in French. So I can't read or write in either language, but ultimately, yes, I can speak French, which I'm happy about. But I started acting when I was 11. And just kind of became very obsessed with becoming the greatest actress of all time. Like literally wrote a contract with myself of like that I would only allow myself 1 hour a day of non-acting activities. And like
I read that it was like you only had like 1 hour that you allotted yourself for like non-acting activities.
I stuck to it, but I wrote the contract.
How'd your teachers feel about that?
Yeah. I'm a Virgo. I wrote the list. I wrote the contract.
You got it down. You signed it.
Highlighted entire books. But I was very, I think my piano teacher instilled a work ethic in me that was very much, well, it was literally, you can sleep when you're dead, which was her. She's always in my head saying that. But I think starting acting in Canada for me was, I think I was really lucky in that respect because people I know here, you either make it big right away or you are doing commercials and just trying to break in. And at least in Canada, there's a very kind of blue collarness about being an actor. It's really like you can do like 10 movies and nobody knows about them. So you can just keep kind of learning your craft there. So yeah, I worked in Canada for a long time and then I moved out here. And I don't know. I guess.
So you knew from 11 you wanted, and you didn't waver from wanting to be. Did you ever have that moment of, if I don't make it by this time, I'm only going to give myself 6 more months?
Oh, yeah. And I'm so glad it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. Because I wanted to be, like at 16, I couldn't believe that I hadn't worked with Leonardo DiCaprio yet. And I was really upset with myself about that.
Titanic came out.
Yeah.
It was like you're like, oh, Kate.
Everything. And I think that what I was lucky about in retrospect was that I got to fail and in like a micro level, in like I'd be in this movie that was going to be the biggest thing. It was with Robert Pattinson and we went to Cannes, and this David Cronenberg movie, and you guys have not heard of it. But it was going to be the biggest thing and then it wasn't. And to like experience those ups and downs, I think was really helpful for me to kind of learn what's really important at a younger age than like getting here and then Schitt's Creek just becomes really successful all of a sudden after we were done. I think having that history helped me understand that this could be fleeting, and to kind of take the opportunity to get another opportunity.
With the post Schitt's Creek, is it, have you felt like, I mean, is Stevie so iconic that everyone expects you to be Stevie when they meet you? Or how is that kind of changed your work after?
Yeah, I do feel like people do expect me to be Stevie. I think a lot of the time I think I can see people's a bit disappointment because I'm much more not as cool as Stevie. Like, I get really excited, and probably am more excited about the fan being excited about Stevie than I should be. But yeah, so I'm not like Stevie. I love Stevie. I'm Stevie's biggest fan. I take a vacation from myself in Stevie. But I love that character journey. I mean, she becomes a businesswoman. It is, to me, when I signed on to that show, I really thought I was just going to be delivering towels to the family and saying a little sarcastic something. And ultimately, Stevie's journey was kind of mirrored mine in a way that I didn't even think that character would be something as great as she is. And Dan kind of wrote this amazing journey for her. So
the episode where Mr. Rose gives you the makeup kit, is like hurt your stomach laughing. That's my favorite episode. It's so fun.
Especially because you should know that is very Eugene. Eugene, he tries really hard, and it's the wrong thing. And it's so lovely. It's the most funny, lovely thing ever. So yeah,
that's great. I read an interview where you said that about taking a vacation. She was that you look at acting that way, that all of these characters are a vacation from yourself, and you kind of go on a little journey in someone else. I think that's an interesting thing for especially young people coming up. How they go about their craft, I guess, is really an interesting way to look at it.
Well, I think there's actors that I know that are very much bring themselves to the character, and they're amazing at doing that. And I became an actor because I wanted to be somebody else. And so what I love is kind of getting stuff from my characters, and especially like playing a stronger woman than I feel like I am. I think it just kind of builds me up a little more each time.
You had talked a little bit about that with the rig.
Yeah, that was definitely something that, and I do feel like, I don't know if this is, I feel like parts come to me at a certain time that are supposed to be like a lesson. But I did feel like that project, when it came to me, I didn't think I could do that role. I didn't think I would be taken seriously as the boss of anything. And my agents really pushed me. My agents are always the ones who believe in me more than myself and make me rise up to those occasions. But it was such a challenge because to me it was this woman in a man's world that I thought I had to have that self-esteem to really kind of command these people. And what I realized in doing it, when I was talking to the director, like the first episode, I was like, not only is it just a group of all these like men, they're giant men, and I don't understand most of them because they are Scottish and wearing masks, but also I think I put the UK actors also on a pedestal, that they'd been to like drama school and stuff like that. And what he told me was, he was like, but this is my character's name is Rose, and he's like, but this is how Rose is feeling in this moment too. Like she's like coming on this rig that everybody in her life has always kind of made her have to work harder to get where she is because she's a woman. Like there is no well, actually, when I was researching the part, there is no woman in that field, in that position that my character was in. There's nobody. And when I was researching it, I met with someone who was just a little lower than her in geology, petrochemical science stuff, and she started kind of like crying, saying to me that she felt like my character was the first superhero she'd ever kind of encountered in that field, because she was like the girl who played with rocks as a kid and was into geology, and there was nobody else, a female in to look up to. And I was like listening to these interviews that you guys were doing. I stalked you on the internet, and just that if you can see it, you can be it thing really resonated with me in a total, I've gone in a totally different segue, but it's just, I understood what she was saying, that like now I'm working with female directors who are first-time directors, and when I was growing up, that didn't happen. And so now I think, oh, maybe I could direct. Maybe I could. So yeah, I think it's important.
No, it's really important. And I think you touched on something that we look at that in the big categories. Like there has to be representation of women, and there has to be there's a geologist that wants to see themselves. There's so many little pieces of each of these characters that can really mean something to someone out there watching.
Yeah.
There's been there's a girl, and I can't remember what the show was, but she hadn't seen anyone with red hair, and you don't even think about like, oh, it's a woman and she's in this job and she's this and she's this, and she was like, she had red hair. I have red hair.
Well, it's just like when it kills me watching that thing about the Little Mermaid with all those kids seeing like, Mom, she looks like me. It kills me seeing
Or the little girl with glasses from Encanto.
Oh, yeah.
That was so sweet. Like all these little kids with glasses that were like, what? There's never been a Disney character with glasses like that. So there are little things like that. So you're a geologist. All the geologists are That's
special.
So with the rig and all the different projects, and you mentioned the Cronenberg, which I had written down. As you're looking at projects, and now, I mean, with all of the different formats and all of the different services, do you kind of wish, or do you kind of plan for where it's going to go, or do you already know if it's going to be theatrical, or if it's going to be a series, or if it's going to be on a streaming service? Do you have favorites now that things have gone in different places that you've worked on, or what, do you have preferences?
I mean, to me, it's less about the platform it's on, because they keep changing, and more about the story that's being told. And what I've found now is like when I was doing Schitt's Creek, at the same time I was doing this other show called 12 Monkeys, and I had the opportunity to do this comedy and this like sci-fi drama at the same time, and they both ended, and I was like, I'll never get this, like it's only downhill from here. And that's when I started creating my own stuff, and it was something that I saw Dan do, to have his hand in everything from the giant menus to the wardrobe to the story and that was like, I love that stuff. And it's always kind of been what I wanted to do, but I used to think I had to align with the guy showrunner and give my ideas so I would get to do something, or I never thought that I would be taken seriously to do it. And after Schitt's Creek, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by people who like believed in me more than I did myself and pushed me. And so now the ultimate thing to me is getting to create my own stuff. I'm doing this remake of this old show called Mary Hartman.
Which, can we just talk about that for a second? Because again, you guys are too young. I actually remember my parents watching Mary Hartman, and because it was so risque and so out there. Sometimes they made me go to bed. I couldn't watch it with them. But that is
I love that you know about it.
Oh my God.
I was going to say.
Do you even know what that is?
I've heard of
kind
it.
of. I can't believe you do. You're so
Well,
young.
I
Why do
only
you
know
love it?
about it because I was in this acting class, and I went to this acting class. It was 2009, and I wasn't getting work. And my manager at the time had said the reason that I wasn't getting auditions was because casting directors didn't think I was funny. So I went to this acting class, like specifically to fix the not funny in my sense of humor. And after I did the scene exercise thingy on stage, I looked to the teacher for her to tell me how to do that. And she said, have you seen Mary Hartman? Mary Hartman. And I hadn't, because we haven't.
Right.
And she's like, you should watch it. She's your kind of funny. And then, as an aside, that only a crazy person would spend a decade taking literally, she said, God, I love that show. They should remake it with you.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
10 years later.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's how, and so I went and I looked it up and I bought a really expensive DVD box set.
And a DVD player.
And a DVD player. And she was my kind of funny. She was, and there were so many things I related to in it that I can't believe were being said out loud then.
Yes, it was way
What
ahead of
year
it.
was it?
Oh,
It was 70s.
70s. Don't make me say it. Yes, it was in the mid 70s.
Yeah.
Do you remember Soap? Did they talk about Soap at the same time?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, there
remember
was that-
watching it, but I know.
Soap and Mary Hartman were both like very cutting edge. Yeah.
It's like I started like Charlie's Angels into the 80s with like Heart to Heart and all of those. That was like those are my cultural points of reference. I have it in it, but
okay. I just want you to know we used to go out to dinner. We'd go to Farrell's for ice cream, and then had to hustle home so we could watch Mary Hartman.
Oh wow!
So that's it. That's the
That
Los
was
Angeles of the 70s.
Oh, that's amazing.
So tell me everything. Where's it going to be? Is it going to be a series? Is it going to be?
Well, I'm doing it with Norman Lear, who is the producer who created the original. He just
Which, how
turned
amazing is
100
that?
recently,
really,
literally
I didn't realize
100, and he is all there, like amazing, so smart, so funny. And yeah, I'm doing it with Sony, and I don't know what I'm allowed to say about it now, but
Tell us when-ish?
It's we don't have a when, but we're in the writing process, and yeah, I just can't believe.
So when you're making the list for the premiere,
working with Norman Lear?
Amazing.
Like,
because also he's like, I really highly recommend his book.
Yeah.
It's called Even This I Get to Experience. And from that title, he really does lead with that genuine curiosity about life, and his kind of motto is that every man is my teacher. And you see that is the thing that keeps him young. Like everybody he speaks to he can learn from. And I just actually went to the 80 for Brady premiere with him and Rita Moreno.
Oh my god!
And because they're friends, and they invited me. It was very nice. And they both do have that thing where they're so youthful. And
She looks
oh my god, I
amazing.
keep asking her, I'm like, what's your skin secret?
Yes.
And she's like, Puerto Rican. But yeah, it was amazing seeing that actually as a woman and actress. It was inspiring to me to think, oh, you can have a career after 20. I think things have changed in such an amazing way.
Well, and those women in there have led that charge. I mean, Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda, I mean, they take nobody's crap.
Yeah.
They are out there. They have another movie coming out, right? The two of them.
Yeah.
It was 90 with Brady. Wasn't it?
80 with
80
Brady.
80 for Brady.
80 for Brady.
Yeah.
And now
then
and
they
then
have
Lily
another
Tomlin and Jane Fonda have another one because they said they had so much fun on.
They're like a
Grey's
new
Anatomy.
duo.
Yeah, but they have another one. But no, that is enlightening, I think, for everyone, and that they're having so much fun.
Yeah.
And do you take mentoring? I mean, do you look at people like that came before you, and how do you feel about like your responsibility for those coming up?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I do in a huge way, just because of the mentors in my life that affected me. And I feel like I was doing this interview in the UK, and the reporter said to me, she's like, have you read Gina Davis's book? And I was like, no, I didn't know she had a book. And it's called Dying of Politeness.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I think you need to read it. And because we were talking about stuff, like I grew up very much that I was telling her that I grew up that asking for anything is rude. Like you should wait until you're offered. Even if you are like dying of thirst at somebody's house, you do not ask for water. And I was telling her about that kind of upbringing, and then she recommended Gina's book, and I started reading it, and there's literally the exact same stories in there. And I feel like just even that kind of mentorship of seeing somebody who came before you in this field that kind of overcame those things and like crushed those boundaries, and that kind of, and I have recently felt not the obligation to be a mentor of sorts, but like I kind of love it. I love the thing of like passing on some wisdom life lesson that I had to learn hard. Because I especially feel that the generation now, it's amazing. The world now is so amazing for women in a way that for me, I've gotten to see the change. Like I got to have a meeting right before the Me Too movement, a general meeting that was very much like a date and normal. That was normal. And then right after that happened, I had another general meeting that was, they brought a script. They talked to me about a project. It was like night and day. And to think that all those things before were like normal to me.
Like they had to like you.
Oh,
first.
yes. They totally had to like you. And it wasn't that anything like happened necessarily in the meeting, but it was like, that's what I was normal. And you had to be liked like that. And all those things that I see this generation doesn't have, like they see it in such a different way. I guess I sometimes take mentorship as like, it's selfish. I'm like learning from them of what the younger generation's kind of point of view on things are without my kind of skewed perspective of how they used to be.
Well, I think we were just raised differently around mentorship. You know, it's like, I just look at it like, because we're similar ages, but looking back, I think mentorship was a word that was like, we were kind of, it was like a word that existed in the dictionary in our 20s. And then then it started building, like it started just kind of building and getting out into like the nomenclature and into culture and into the cultural zeitgeist. And then it started building where like, even looking back and from a mentorship standpoint, you know, people were, I think they were mentoring without even knowing they were mentoring, but it wasn't, it didn't have this, this is what it is. Who are you? How do you help me? And this is what you do. Like, it was just being kind.
Yeah. But especially I think for women, the way we grew up, it was competitive. Like when I grew up as an actor, you weren't friends with the other actresses. And then because there were only one good part and you were all pitted against each other fighting for it. And so now mentorship is probably, what I'm thinking of mentorship is actually just being generous to another woman.
It's being kind and generous, of giving time, of giving advice. It's just,
and we find with women in entertainment, women are so generous. I mean, they want to give their time, they want to help, and they want to, but I think it's a shift. When you're, now that you're working on projects like this and you're putting your team together, does that look different than the teams that you know, the behind the camera in front of that, than what you worked with coming up?
Well, I think it's just it's a learning curve for me in terms of being, I'm even embarrassed to say this word, being a boss. I find that word hard to say because I associate it with boss bitch, and I associate it with like,
I'd agree with you.
Bossy.
Right?
Being a boss is like, when people use the word boss, I'm just like, ugh.
Like, and
just,
I don't want to be like that, like, because I want to be a good, but the word sounds like I'm
a good
bad.
leader.
A leader. That totally, yes, a captain of this ship kind of thing, and bringing people together and helping them do their best and making, like, giving them kind of the space to be even better. And so that I especially learned in, I made this comic book called Amelia Earwood Basic Witch. And in that process of hiring illustrators and choosing someone to co-write with me and making decisions that I had to not only select people, but like direct it towards the vision I wanted, was such a paradigm shift for me, because I used to think that my vision couldn't be as good as somebody else's. Like if someone had a different idea than me, I wouldn't be on my own team. I would be like, oh, that must be amazing. I'm Canadian. I'm nice. You're the best. I'm the worst. And it's like this thing that I'm always kind of trying to.
What do you drink in Canada?
Sorry?
What do you drink in Canada?
What do we drink? Oh, God. Yeah, we drink self-deprecation. But it is, and I do think it comes just from being the smaller thing to America.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also, it's a double-edged sword. There is the good of it. I think we have a lot of comedy. A lot of comedians come out of Canada because it is, I think comedy sometimes to me is like the cry of the powerless. It's I find sad things funny.
Right.
But yeah, I think that kind of thing of really realizing that the direction I give to somebody else, it's not saying I don't like what you're doing. It's saying like, can you help me do this vision and maybe one up me on that? And I keep trying to shift my thinking into how would I like to be directed? How would I, because when I was doing it badly at first, I had to realize that like, oh, I wouldn't want somebody to say, oh, that's so great, and then go use somebody else because you didn't want to say, well, that's not exactly what I'm looking for, but maybe if we switch the lines this way. And, who actually helped me a lot with this was my friend Jenna Lyons, used to be the head, I guess, CEO person of J. Crew. She kind of
Oh
designer.
my gosh,
Do you-
we're
I'm
obsessed with
I
her.
love
Oh,
Jenna
okay.
Lyons.
Yes.
So, and I keep telling Jenna she's got to write a book.
Oh
and,
my gosh.
And I'm telling her, I'm like, if you don't want to write a book, I'm just going to like print out our texts where you, because she's also remodeling she's designing my Reno thing that I'm doing. And she's helped me so much with, I was scared to say what I don't like in terms of a reno for my house. And she's like, you're not hurting their feelings. You're directing it towards what you want. And I think just that fundamental thing of feeling entitled to what I want as a woman wasn't instilled in me.
Well, I think that's across the board. I think that comes with having empathy, and that's having compassion and looking at, making sure everybody's okay. I think that's a maternal instinct in some ways. That's in all of us, that you walk in and you want everybody to feel comfortable.
Are you
you're
the
like,
oldest?
is everybody good?
No, I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest. Okay.
But it doesn't surprise me that Jenna Lyons would say that to you, given she helped so many women find their colors and their patterons out of J. Crew.
Yeah.
It's like J. Crew has never been the same.
I know. She is amazing. And she does, what I love is she'll just give me the language shift in, which I think, again, she needs to write a book because it's something that you're not taught how to be a leader in that way, in an encouraging way. Like my perception of being a boss or a leader is like those, what's the Gordon Ramsay? Like, you know?
I remember at one point we heard Jenna speak at a glamour event, and she said it was something that stuck with me as a leader. And she was talking about how she said something to somebody on her team, and that person, all of a sudden it became, well, Jenna's really angry about this. Jenna has to do and it like turned into almost like rapid fire. And she realized that she wasn't thinking that. It was just her delivery, that she's in a position of power. And that was like, and all of a sudden the interpretation of her words then became like,
different.
Different because of the person she was speaking to was underneath her from a level standpoint. And it got manipulated. So she became very careful with her words and her delivery. So it couldn't be misinterpreted. interpreted. And that was like a learning experience from her. And that's always stuck with me as a leader, you know, or whenever you're in a team, to always be conscious of who you're speaking to, how it's directed, so it doesn't turn into something, a beast that you didn't even intend for it to be.
Yeah. And being conscious of a position of power, I think, has been a new narrative for everyone, in a great way. Like, especially when I first came to LA, it was very much like if you were an agent's assistant, like you were going to be abused, like you were going to be treated very badly, and that was the initiation. And now I think, I don't know, there's maybe I do think that Schitt's Creek came along and put out a new kind of kind comedy into the world. The world was ready for it. It was a perfect storm. But I do think, even with the pandemic and everything, we've all become a little kinder. Like even kids today in school, like when I was growing up, you were supposed to bully and be bullied, and that was the dynamic. Like now, when I go on the TikTok, when I take a gander into that world, I'm so moved by when somebody says a mean thing to somebody, all these other people are like, she looks great. Like they're mean to the person who was mean. They're like, well, not even mean. They're just like, you know, no. Yeah.
Like, this is not
Which
acceptable.
is so different from, I think, how we grew up.
Yeah. But we also didn't have social media. So.
No, we didn't.
Which I'm
dodged
very
that
glad. I'm very glad we did not have that.
I like that it was a nice comedy. That it's true. There was it came around at a time because I think I was like most people that I caught on like season 3, like late. Well, then I was trying to remember, what was the first station it was on? What was the first channel it was on?
Well, I mean, it was first done Pop, which most
Pop.
people didn't even know
about.
What.
Right.
I mean, I remember going to a CBS party, and Pop was owned by CBS, and CBS did not know who Pop was in all the things. So it was, we'd been doing, the show really only became seriously popular when we were done.
Right. And that
it
was
went
the
on
last
Netflix.
season and all the Emmys?
It was pretty much the last season. I mean, the season before, it went on Netflix, and that was a really big thing. But I think, when everyone was in lockdown and forced to watch it, it became popular.
Because did you do it one season after all the Emmy wins?
No,
they were the last.
That would have been a lot of, like, I think that was
pressure.
It was very Schitt's Creekian, though, in the way of like, for that show to win everything when it was done is kind of great. So yeah.
What was it like working with Catherine OHara?
Amazing. I had actually done a movie with Catherine years before, and I remember I was going for my U.S. citizenship, and when you do that, you have to get letters from famous people saying all these crazy nice things about you to prove that you are a person of extraordinary ability in your field. And so I had to reach out to people. It's torture. It's really embarrassing. And I was like, I don't know if you'll remember me, but write this long, torturous letter. And right away, she's like, of course. And like just did this great thing for me. And she was just so lovely. And you know what? One of the first really generous women, like with me in that, like actress-wise and stuff. I did find older women with me when I was younger were so good to me. Your peers at the time weren't, because you were competitive, but like I did feel like Catherine and Sigourney Weaver and people who were like top of their game were super lovely and generous. So working with Catherine is like, I mean, both her and Eugene, again, are Canadian. And so the only downside is like, if someone offers you coffee on set and you accept and don't instead buy everyone coffee and bring it, you are the diva. Because like they are just those kind of people. Like they are so there's no hierarchy or egos on like we're all the same. And it was kind of very family in that way. Like family that like you.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Did you know anyone from the group before you
Just
auditioned?
Catherine. Just
from
yeah.
the
And no, I didn't know anyone. No.
We were talking last week when we were in New York and working on some things, and we were talking about being workaholics and liking. We were like, we're at that point where you can't get your hair cut because you're just busy doing things.
yeah.
And I read and I was reading an interview that you did, and you said you love being workaholic and you love work.
Well, I've
and
accepted it now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not fighting it
and
anymore.
your friends know you're a workaholic. now.
Yes. Yes. And because I was fighting it before, feeling really guilty. I think mostly about relationships because you really, it's not good to be a workaholic in relationships. So I decided to get rid of relationships and just be a workaholic. I'm never happier than when I'm working. I do feel like I don't have kids but I feel like when I create something with somebody else and like collaborate on something, that fulfills that thing in me in a huge
They
way.
are children in their own way.
Oh,
That's why
yeah.
everybody calls their businesses their
baby, right? And you send it out in the
You put
world.
it into the
and
world. You're
people
waiting for it to grow.
Yes. Yeah.
Going back to your graphic novel, what inspired that?
Well, I was first one of my agents left during the pandemic to pursue his passion, which was always comic books. And he went to this company called Z2 that did their kind of thing is doing comic books for big musicians and stuff and like collaborating with people like the Gorillaz or Led Zeppelin, Weird Al. They have a book coming out. And he was like, I think Emily has a comic book in her. And he presented this opportunity to me to make any comic book I wanted. And I was like, I'd never thought of that before until I realized in a comic book, like I could do anything. Like no budget required, no health and safety. I made my comic, she has a Jello pool, like everything I've ever wanted I could put in this comic. And so I was but I was like, I need a good idea.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about it and I was like, well, it's got to come from me and my life. And I think I was watching the Kardashians and I started to think, oh boy, if I just happened to be born into that family and I was like one of the sisters, I would be the worst Kardashian ever.
So the secret Kardashian
That
no one
that
recognizes.
nobody knows because she got kicked out of the reality show because she was so bad at all those things that they do. And so then I was like, I kind of came up with this idea that the worst witch in the world is born into this kind of family of super witches. They're like the Kardashians of the witch world. And they're all like really entrepreneurial and great at, like, she has 3 sisters and they're all really great at being on brand and amazing. And Amelia, she's a Schitt witch. It was originally going to be called Schitt Witch, but then I realized that was not a great idea. So she's just bad at, quote unquote, bad at magic. But you realize in it that ultimately she's trying to be what she thinks she's supposed to be, but the thing that she thinks is her problem ultimately becomes her superpower. And in writing it, I did realize that everything I end up writing or creating from the beginning always ultimately has the same themes, and it's always the lesson of the Wizard of Oz. It was always in you. You just had to find it for
Do you
yourself.
find that as your own mantra, as your mission in life?
Yeah, but it happens to me because I'll do interviews and people ask me about like the themes and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, but it ultimately just ends up being that about identity. It's a mother-daughter story. It's all my own shit that comes. So I don't know if I can say shit.
Yeah,
can.
I shouldn't have,
You
but
can.
okay. But I just realized that no matter what I do, it becomes that. Even if I look at Stevie, like that's the journey of Stevie. It was always in you. You just had to, like everybody else saw it. You just had to believe it for yourself, and you didn't even have to leave Schitt's Creek to find. Like you can stay there and be a businesswoman. And so yeah, I love it more. My comic book, I love it more than anything because I got to make the comic book that I would have wanted, because I didn't read comic books as a kid because they were for boys, I thought. And it's just like, it's funny and I love her and she's the coolest, but like the worst. Yeah.
Did you enjoy the writing process?
Very much so.
Are you writing on Mary Hartman also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is, to me, my dream place where I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to get dressed or anything. And I can just like imagine things in my head and they start talking and doing things. And I love that. But with Amelia, what I also love is whenever she gets anxious or messes up, or when she farts in this public way, she goes into her void, which is where she kind of like just goes and starts talking to the reader. And I just love giving this like anxiety device for her where she can kind of come clean and be like, so things are really bad, and here's some puppies. And she's just
Everybody
like,
loves puppies.
right? Cute puppies. Yeah. So I do love the writing process.
Do you see yourself writing and then letting somebody else kind of take your baby? And
I would love to do that. I did realize that with this comic book with my lead artist, Kristen Gudsnook, when I would imagine something, i.e. a Jell-O pool, and she would need to draw, and I know it's not technically writing, but for this it kind of is, because she would then send me back art that had a Jell-O pool, but also around it had things like, you know, on the sides of pools, it says like no running, all that. She has like running allowed, cool people only, and like one-upping everything I would come up with. And that to me is the greatest collaboration. And then to ultimately, I would love to create stuff that like somebody takes and runs with, as long as they're the right people. If they're not, it's torture.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. Yeah, writing and being. We've had a couple of writers of novels on that finally got into they're going to make my book into a movie.
Oh,
Torturous.
Oh, that would be very hard.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to do that.
It sounds like everyone's dream, and they said, yeah, you have to go through the hell, and then it becomes the dream, because that's the love of novels. I mean, we all see it very differently as we're reading it. So how do you pick the one?
I know, and I would find that so hard too, because I even find it hard to let something out of my imagination and be, I don't know, some like. I haven't had anyone act my words yet, but as an actor, it's made me very scared because I'm like, they're gonna like just butcher it and not do it right. Because sometimes I wouldn't. It's made me very conscious of like when I do something now, want to say every word that's written, but then you realize you just want somebody to take your thing and like make it their own and better, as long as they make it better.
Right.
What is the vulnerability like to put your stuff out there?
I do think writing came to me at a time where I changed. I'd been in a lot of therapy, and before I would always look outside to be like, is that good? Even if I thought it was good, like I'd go to an audition and I thought it was good, I wouldn't want to say it was good in case they didn't think it was. And then it would seem like I thought I was good and I wasn't. That would be my nightmare. But when I started writing, I had gotten some self-esteem, and I started to realize like, oh, I actually like this. I think this is good. And sending it out, I was like, it wasn't that I didn't care if somebody liked it, but it was like I would only send it out when I knew for me it was good. Whereas I guess with acting, sometimes what I find hard, being a bit of a perfectionist, is that you're not in control of that finished product. But like when I send something out I've written, I'm saying I think this is good enough. Obviously want notes and all that stuff. But I think that was a big learning curve for me for the first time. I kind of remember it. I sent my first draft out and I was like, if they don't if they don't like it, that's okay. It's not for them. It's not like, it's just not the right thing for them. I've become much more okay with that. I think part of that might be also, I don't know if you've ever shopped for a house or something like that, but like I did that recently, and you put offers on all these things that you think you're going to get. I start a cart. I start buying furniture for the house. I did,
like
and then
name the puppy.
Yeah. And then you don't get it.
Yeah.
But then when you find your house, you're like, thank God I didn't get that one.
Right.
And so I kind of think I've now come to terms with like, oh, if what I have that I think is the best and like my best version, if you don't like it, that's okay. It's just not right for you. It doesn't mean I'm bad or my thing is bad.
Yeah.
But to get that belief in your own kind of creative thing, for me at least, has been a long journey.
Well, it's letting go of control, of controlling other people,
Oh,
controlling expectation.
totally.
And it's like that is such a huge hill to
Yeah.
climb and let go of. So that's something to
Yeah,
be super
that's
proud
so
of.
true. It is like you're trying to control other people in doing that too.
And control situations and outcomes. And it's like, you can't.
Yeah.
No.
Like, that's something that's just, and it takes so much energy and so much insecurity.
Yes.
Those one woman shows you see. That's what
like-
that's what those are.
Stand up is like
Yeah.
the most frightening thing in the world.
Yeah.
If you think about it. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's like that's a huge, to be able to put something that you put your heart and soul into and put that into the world and
Yeah.
be vulnerable to that and be able to accept what comes back to you and boomerang. You know, that's something to be incredibly proud of.
Yeah. No, you've just given me a whole shift on that too, because I didn't realize that is trying to control other people. Okay.
What tell us what you're watching and what you're loving, and I know you don't have downtime because you work all the time, but are there things that you love to watch or
Yeah, well, I do have trouble watching television or anything that's not pertaining to something I'm doing or like informative on that thing. So mostly I usually just watch murder documentaries, all document, because I feel like I need to be, well, murders like, or documentaries, not just murder, but mostly murder. I just am fascinated by it. So I mostly just watch that. But recently, I started watching Boy Meets World.
Oh my gosh.
And I
awesome.
love it. I've never seen it before. And I'm like so into it. And I started watching because I got this haircut and someone was like, you look like Ryder Strong. And I thought Ryder Strong was so cute. And so I started watching it. And they have this podcast now, Pod Meets World, that I watch an episode and I listen to their thing. And so I'm on this whole journey that
what's
has
her name? Topanga?
Topanga.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a generational like connection there, I've also got into like 90210. They have a podcast out there, which is fantastic. It's remember, like, what is it? Oh, I'm so mad at myself for blanking on it, but it follows every episode of 90210
wow.
and dissects the episode
Oh
from
my
a
God, that's
cultural
brilliant.
standpoint.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, wow.
You will, like, I've almost driven off the road laughing so hard at how these women dissect this.
That's amazing.
Again with this, that's what it is. And they've gone through every episode of 90210 and then Melrose Place.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Wow. And Melrose.
And Melrose Place. So
That is
just
hilarious.
something.
It's amazing how nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
When you're watching things, I mean, obviously the Gilmore Girls is always the top 3 on Netflix, and but when something went on Netflix, what was it? Oh, Jeopardy! Old Jeopardy episodes
Oh, wow. I'd love to
were
watch
yeah
that.
I'd love to
were a
watch that.
top were a top thing, but I think nostalgia.
You're right. There
does-
is a huge also kind of zeitgeist into nostalgia. If you think everything's being rebooted
Yes,
and
yes.
visited.
Well, didn't Norman Lear do One Day at a Time?
Oh,
that
yeah,
was his
yeah.
last
That was his-
reboot that he just
Yeah.
recently did that was super successful.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just thinking of your magical life. I mean, Jenna Lyons and Norman Lear. I mean, really?
Like,
That's who you're
a
hanging
Friday
out with
night.
these. I mean, these days.
It's
That's a very magical life. Thank you so much. I feel like we've been just friends chit
Thank
chatting.
you guys. Can't wait to listen to
Don't tell
all
us
your-
that where you live here, because we'll be bugging you now to come do our summit and all
Oh my
kinds
God,
of different
I would
things.
love to. I also have, I did watch all your interviews. I watched your TEDx talk. I watched
I was like,
everything.
okay, all you. I was
So-
like, I'm the silent one behind the camera.
No, you've done interviews.
Yeah, yeah.
You have. I'll send them to you.
Oh,
Okay. Anyways, I'm a fan.
Thank
so, and I
you,
feel like
thank
I've been
you.
influenced by the work you did indirectly by everybody else, and so thank you.
Well, Gina has been a big partner. Her whole, I mean, the whole institute has been such a good partner to us, and stepped right in. I mean, she was one of our very first speakers. So
Yeah.
that
I'm gonna write her a letter.
Oh my
like,
gosh,
about
and it will
reading
mean
her
so
book.
much to her. I'm not kidding.
I
It
think
will
she might
mean
think
so
it's too
much to her.
It might be too much.
No.
because
there's
it's
never
like,
too much.
They
Never.
will. They will. It will be. That's important to her. That her book and that her work. She's brilliant. She's so smart, and all of this that she does. But that will mean a lot to her. So I love, as we're talking to people, I feel like all of these worlds cross over.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are just us being obnoxious, like with Jenna Lyons. But
Like, we wish she was our best
yeah,
friend.
we want her to be our best friend. And we'll.
I own a lot
I
of
had
her
on a
sparkles.
Jenna outfit
yeah, and can you
today.
borrow like
Yeah.
something of hers to wear? Yes, I've been in that.
Like, I
closet.
bought a
No,
lot.
you haven't.
Yes, I did.
Oh.
And I even like kind of slept in that closet. It's and all her shoes. We don't
I
have the
own
same
more
size feet.
shoes with sparkles on them because of Jenna Lyons.
Because
I
of
know,
Jenna.
right? And you
I
just have to
literally am
throw
like,
'em
I
on.
don't even like. I'll wear them like
Well,
cleaning.
what was the show? And this doesn't have to be on our podcast. What was the show? She did the show on HBO Max, I think.
Stylish with Jenna Lyons.
Stylish. And did it not? Did she
Well-
choose not to go on? What happened with that?
No, I think it was a combination of like COVID hit right when they were
Okay.
ending and stuff. But that's actually how I met her because I watched that show
It
and I was
great.
like, I'm obsessed with you. And
Yes.
we had a mutual friend and
Okay, now
connected
you're
us.
our mutual
Mutual
friend.
friend.
yes,
So-
yes. I'll put you on the
Just
text
like-
chain. Yes.
No, she was. That was a good show.
It was
and,
great.
And when you were talking about her leadership and her things, that's what I kept thinking. It was on that
Yes.
show. She was mentoring.
She was so
Yeah.
good. And that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
exactly why I
Yeah.
wanted to reach out because of the way I just remember so viscerally her having a meeting with somebody she was letting go.
Yes.
And the way she did it was
Yes.
so inspiring. Like, how can you be inspired by being fired?
Right.
And she did it.
Yeah, and they were, and you're like, you're going to go on to do great things. Yes,
Yes.
she was amazing. But that was a good show.
It was really
I
good.
hadn't thought about that in a while. That was a good one. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Emily, so
Thank you very
much.
much.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. To stay up to date with In Her Words, join the conversation by following Women in Entertainment on our social channels and subscribe to our weekly newsletter at womeninentertainment.com.